Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? Matt here from YoVideogames, and I'm here with another new Real Talk, I guess, episode. It's just something I kind of been mulling over, and it's something I kind of wanted to, really get off my chest, really talk about with you guys, and that is, where the hell is Xenoblade going? Now, if you're on this channel, if you're on my streams at twitch.tv/assistmedoom, you know I'm a Xenoblade guy. Xeno's my series. Well, Xenoblade's my series. Let me clarify that real quick for anyone who's maybe new and is coming into this video, for my, thoughts and predictions and stuff, and that is, Gears, highly ambitious, very flawed. Saga, it's bad all around. Blade, absolutely perfection in video gaming. So that's where my stance is real quick there. I love and appreciate the fact that Tetsuya Takahashi and all the staff at Monolith Soft came together and have kind of built themselves up. Great Cinderella story, right? But anyways, so this video is going to be about the future of Xenoblade, the way I see it, the way I predict, put on, my thinking cap, or my future cap, or, start up my Zohar or Conduit, peer into the future, and what do I see, and this is what it's going to be. So obviously, this is a spoiler video. Why the fuck are you here if you are, wary of spoilers for the Xenoblade series? We're talking about everything post-Xenoblade, so we're going to be going off of the last bit of DLC, last bit of 3. So yeah, if you haven't been playing the games and you're like, oh, I'm thinking of jumping in at some point, well, I'm going to spoil the whole goddamn thing for you right here. So yeah, you're best off, waiting. But you know what, if you don't care, hey, there's a lot to go over here. You might forget it by the time you get through it anyways. Let's talk about Xenoblade's future. Now, I want to clear up a couple things here. There's been some talk about a statement from Tetsuya Takahashi, one of the co-creators of the Xeno franchise in general, all the way back at Square Enix, or Squaresoft as it were at the time. And this comes from the soundtrack box. I own it. I have it, And I think a lot of people really take a little bit out of context where he says he wants to do something completely different for the next Xenoblade entry. And he kind of says this a lot. He said it a lot in a lot of interviews. He's talked about, I get bored easily. I want to move on from things. I want to try new things. He's infamously said he wanted to create a sort of R-rated high fantasy drama like Game of Thrones from, things from American, streaming and cable service things. He basically directly referenced he wants something with like a lot of like really dark themes, violence, gore, blood, sex, all that shit. That obviously has never really come to pass. He said Xenoblade 2 was going to have nothing to do with Xenoblade 1, and, that was a fucking lie. So he says this stuff a lot of the times, and I don't think he's necessarily completely lying about, I want to do something completely different for Xenoblade. I think he's talking about tonally, musically, sort of that stuff. Like, it's going to be a game that's going to be wide linear. It's going to have large open zones. It's going to have, gameplay and systems that feel familiar enough to Xenoblade. Xenoblade is their most successful thing Monolith Soft has ever done. That's on their own, not counting basically making Zelda for Nintendo all during the Switch, but on their own, Xenoblade 2 is their best-selling game, and Xenoblade Definitive and 3 didn't sell too bad neither. So they're kind of all in on Xenoblade. Takahashi has complained about how Nintendo tends to basically turn down every idea they propose to them to greenlight. They only seem to be interested in Xenoblade, which is a little unfortunate. I hope Nintendo kind of gets over that. I feel Nintendo personally owes Monolith Soft a blank fucking check after everything they did for them regarding their engine and creation and programming for Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, which without them that game could not have existed the way it does. So with all those millions and millions of copies sold for those Zelda games, yeah, Monolith Soft kind of deserves a blank check to whatever they want to do. So that's a rant for another time. Let's not get too sidetracked here. Let's talk Let's talk specifically about Xenoblade 4 and where they're going to go with that. Maybe will it be called Xenoblade 4? Maybe. It could be something like Xenoblade X, but X being a spin-off, and X is that. And let's just kill that right now. I just want to get that out of the way. X is not coming to the Switch. It's probably not coming to the Switch successor either. Like, X is a side project, X is a tech demo, X is a lot of things, but what X is not is a franchise. I think this is something you all gotta really let go of. There was rumors from insiders that X was proposed for the Switch but turned down by Nintendo, who opted instead wanted to see Definitive Edition made rather than X. I don't know how true that is. It's possible. But here's the thing. Xenoblade X was basically made as a means for Monolith Soft to build an HD-era game engine for all their upcoming projects and all the projects beyond. And everything is, basically takes from X. X was the origin, the genesis of basically what was all to come. It was the engine used for Breath of the Wild. It was the engine used for Xenoblade 2, Xenoblade Torna, Tears of the Kingdom, Xenoblade 3, Future Dream. Everything came from that central point of origin with Xenoblade X. So there's a lot of debt of gratitude there. That being said, here's the thing. X is kind of like a dead end. Like, obviously people think it narratively ends on a cliffhanger. I think that's a little misinterpreted. I think X is more of a closed loop rather than a cliffhanger, but there's a lot of weird similarities if you really look into the things going on in X and Xenoblade 3. Like the weird cloaked figure of Xenoblade X that you see in the post credits is actually literally just a console from Xenoblade 3 with the same core chest crystal thing. He's just in black instead of red. It's really weird. It's really bizarre. Like X, if anything, was sort of like a prototype for the story they were gonna end up doing in 3 in a weird sort of way. But let's not get too deep into that. I just want to get this out of the way right now. X is not coming back. It was a tech demo. It was basically Monolith trying their hand at a lot of things, including online gameplay, which didn't really seem to go anywhere. That could happen for the next game, but I kind of doubt it, but who knows. But I'll give my reasons why I don't think we're probably going to see return of multiplayer from them anytime soon. But anyways, let's continue onward, and let's talk into Xenoblade 4. Assuming it's called 4 and maybe it gets a new subtitle. Maybe they want to differentiate it, because there is a possibility where they talked about Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3 being the Klaus arc. It's the trilogy. It's a closed trilogy. Not really closed, but it's a trilogy that ends kind of neatly, and it's kind of all centered around the oopsie-daisy of a man named Klaus, scientist who all about could've, not about should've. And we're kind of done with the story as is by the end of 3 and Future Redeemed. So where does it go for 4? So here's the crazy thing. I want to kind of get things out of the way. There's a cutscene at the end of Future Redeemed that's kind of got every single Xenoblade fan and streamer and content creator in a fucking tizzy. And I think a lot of people have pulled a lot of wrong information out of it. So just to briefly summarize, there's a sort of memory bank digital version of Earth prior to any events of any Xenoblade game happening at the end of Future Redeemed that you go to within the memory system of Origin. We see the character Niall basically being promised this whole grand future where one of the system administrators, Alvis, is going to take her and basically the souls, if you will, of the people from the city in Ionios, and he's going to take them to a new world. He's basically going to fuck right off either to a new universe or a new part of or of our own universe. Who knows? That's not really clear. That's not really important. And while she's living and playing a piano in the backyard and giving cookies to kids, we hear on the radio, which has a Vector Industries logo from Saga, they talk about a bunch of different things, and they name drop a character from Saga, Dimitri Uriev, and they name drop a thing called Project Exodus, which is also related to Xenoblade X. So this got a lot of people thinking, oh, Saga's related. And let me go over real quick why Saga is not related to Xenoblade. Okay, first of all, this is probably most important. Dimitri Uriev is the head of the Minos Authority, and that is a different role from Dimitri Uriev within the Xenosaga universe. Now, I won't go into too many specifics, but they're very similar but different. And here's the thing: the Minos Authority in Xenoblade 3 or 2 or the Xenoblade universe, it is one of 3 pillars. So here's the crazy thing. This information comes from the goddamn Siren model kit. Yes, we are still having to use actual canon lore from a fucking model kit to basically explain away some of the things sort of left unsaid. Anyways, in the Siren model kit, we learned that there were 3 orbital elevators from the surface of Earth to low orbit satellite stations in the ring around Earth. Radamanthus is the one that we climb. That's the World Tree in Xenoblade 2. That's the one that Klaus is on. That's the one the Conduit's on. One of the other trees, or I should say surface to low orbit elevators, was called Minos. And the head of Minos at the time was Dimitri Uriev in the Xenoblade universe. And this follows a very similar role, but not the same role that Dimitri had in Xeno Saga. We can kind of infer, because the name Dimitri Uriev and the fact that he is talking about a human rights issue with the Saviorite rebel group, which should be translated as Salvatore Rebels, which is the same name of a group in Xeno Saga that Dimitri Uriev is also connected to. We can kind of infer that basically Dimitri Uriev was probably the reason that the Saviorite rebels in Xenoblade 2 attacked Radamanthus and were trying to get to the conduit. It also would explain why the mechs in Xenoblade 2 that are fighting the sirens, or all those other all the other mechs in Xenoblade 2's ending, explains why the mechs that you see in Radamanthus are the ones fighting each other in the flashback, because they came from another pillar. Anyways, I don't want to get too sidetracked on that necessarily, but hey, just figured to point that out, that Dimitri Uriev is the head of the Minos Authority, who runs another surface to low orbit pillar, not seen in the video games, but is listed and described in the Siren model kit for Xenoblade 2. I am so fucking sorry for anyone who's trying to wrap their brains about that. Anyways, so moving on with that. So anyways, as we see in the ending, result of Klaus's experiment where the two worlds, Earth got split into two dimensions, re-merge, I guess I don't know how else you'd say that, into one single Earth at the end, one combined Earth. So that's kind of like, it's a nice little tying up the bow on it. But what really sent everyone to a tizzy is that after everything, after the credits, after the last song, the last shot, the thing that if you combined all 20 CDs in the Trinity box set, combines to make the same image. You see Earth recombined with the split one, and you see a weird blue dot heading towards the surface of it. And everyone thinks it's fucking Cosmos from the end of Xenosaga 3, where half her upper torso is drifting back to Lost Jerusalem in the end of Xenosaga. It's not fucking Cosmos. I'm just gonna put this out right now. We gotta need to put this rumor, we gotta need speculation rumor, whatever, to bed. It's not Cosmos. And here's the very simple reason why it's not Cosmos. Because every time they use Cosmos, they have to fucking work out a deal with Namco Bandai. Or Bandai Namco. Whatever, they're Namco. Fuck them. And here's the thing. They're not going to keep doing this. Nintendo is not going to constantly have to pay royalties and licensing fees to use names, images associated with Xenosaga. It was a fun nod. This was a nod. It was an Easter egg. It is not a hint towards the future. Vector Industries being on the radio is not a hint that Xenosaga or Dimitri Uriev being name dropped. This is not saying they're in the same universe. They're all connected. It's Cosmos coming back at the end. No. Namco is in the credits for Future Redeemed. They're in the credits for Xenoblade 2, obviously, because Cosmos and Telos are characters in that game, though they're not the same Cosmos and Telos in Xenoblade 2 as they were in Xenosaga. So getting that all out of the way, they're not going to do that because that would constantly require Nintendo to constantly deal legally with Namco every single time they want to use anything that's associated, that has an image associated with Xenosaga. They're literally in the credits because of the Vector Industries. And obviously for Xenoblade 2 much more because of actually having characters from it. So it's not Cosmos coming back. That's just not going to happen. And a lot of people think, because they dropped the name Project Exodus for the colonization ships in Xenoblade 3 Future Redeemed, that it's connected to Xenoblade X. That was the name of the project for which all the spaceships departed Earth. Well, here's the problem with that. In Xenoblade X, Earth gets blown up in the opening cutscene. 2 alien races show up in front of our door and are battling each other, and they blow up Earth in the crossfire. And Project Exodus was Elma coming to Earth early, giving a bunch of alien tech, helping humans build a bunch of escape plan ships, and them taking off in the middle of the fight. And the only one that we know about, the White Whale in Xenoblade X, which crash lands on the planet Mira. They don't even know if any other White Whale ships made it off the surface alive, and they were pursued down by one of the alien races, the Ganglion, and yada yada yada. Earth gets blown up in the beginning of Xenoblade X. Earth is there and never gets blown up in Xenoblade 1 or 2 or 3. And at the end of Future Redeemed, we see Earth basically combine itself with alternate universe Earth to create Earth Prime, or whatever the fuck they want to call it. So it's not Xenoblade X related, because there is no Earth in Xenoblade X. The other thing, too, in Xenoblade X, they have firm dates for when this happened, and it was at the end of the 20th century in Xenoblade X. It was like 2170 something, I think. Whatever. Not important. Point is that they actually had a specific day, a specific year in which the aliens blowed the fuck up Earth in Xenoblade X. They also had the United States government in Xenoblade X. In Xenoblade 2, we do see hints of the United States government in the Radamanthus World Tree and stuff like that. But here's the interesting thing about it is that there's nothing really sort of indicating that there was United States is still a thing, because it was the United Government Coalition, and they even named drop coalition. This is stuff used in a lot of other Xeno games. So what Xenoblade 2 and 3 sort of hint at is that it was basically like imagine the UN kind of took over, and it was just like United Nations as a whole is kind of running the planet. It's not really separated by United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru. It's not really like that anymore in Xenoblade 2 and 3. So it's just sort of to me, it's like another little nail in the coffin. Like, X is not connected to this. And some people think, oh, well, that's the ship, or that's Elma. The weird thing I hear is that, oh, it's Elma coming to Earth to warn them about the alien invasion and set them in motion the events that X are going to happen. And it's like, well, this doesn't work, because, again, they specifically cite the year 2050 to 70 something for the time for when Elma came to Earth in Xenoblade X. And in Xenoblade 2, it's called 20XX. In the Siren, if we go back to the Siren model kit, they find the conduit in a lake bed in Africa. Hello, Saga again. And they specifically talk about how it was, the whole research group around it was built up, and then they built this whole low orbit station and yada yada, and all things that would have taken way longer amount of time from the discovery of the conduit to building that space station and all the pillars, and then the Saviorite Rebellion and yada yada yada. It's not X. Okay, it's not X, because it doesn't line up with the Siren model kit. It doesn't line up with the stuff in Xenoblade 2 and 3. It doesn't line up with the stuff that's described in detail in Xenoblade X. It's not related to Xenoblade X. Xenoblade X is in an alternate universe somewhere, never to be resolved. So then asks, what is the significance of the blue dot coming back to the planet at the end of Xenoblade 3 Future Redeemed, and what does it mean? And I think the answer was very obvious and kind of in front of everyone's face, and it was the Philadelphia-class motherships. Because in Xenoblade 3 Future Redeemed, in the radio, the newscast that's being reported over the cutscene, we learn about one of the ships called the Icarus, which just launched. And it has 480,000 passengers, and they're going to the Eta Carina Nebula in the Carina Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way galaxy. This is a real place, by the way. You can actually look it up. It's about, I believe, 8,000 light years from Earth. So a round trip without really stopping would be 16,000 years. Now, Xenoblade 2 and 3 and 1 take place much longer amount of times away than that, millennia even, as described Project Icarus. And Project Icarus, by the way, is a nice little reference to Planet of the Apes, and that might be important later on, so keep that in mind. Icarus was the name of the ship in the original Planet of the Apes that Charlton Heston. In the cutscene, they talk about there's going to be an 8th ship launching as part of Project Exodus. Again, not to escape the planet from alien invasion, but just to colonize. And it'll bring the total number of people out in space to 3 million. So at the time of the radio broadcast in Future Redeemed, which is an echo, a repeat of a moment in time from long, long ago, there was already 3 million people in space that went to go colonize the Eta Carina Nebula. So that's interesting. And more interesting is they talk about there's going to be a 9th ship that's going to launch. It's going to be a new generation of these ultra long-range colony ships. They're known as Philadelphia-class motherships, and these ships can have 1.5 million people on them. And they have plans to send a total of 10 million people into space. So they're gonna boost that number to 7 million people flying out to this at a Carina Nebula. And this was kind of, to me, the very obvious thing, because that dot coming back is probably one of those giant ships. And if you've been playing Xeno from the beginning, you can kind of see where this might be going. Because at the very, very opening of Xeno Gears, all the way back on the PlayStation, you have this giant spaceship, a big colony ship, a ship that has a city within it, kind of like X, yes, but it's this giant colony ship full of civilians, you know, men, women, children, catamony, and all the whole thing. I'm not going to get into the Xeno Gears, but yeah, something goes wrong on the ship in Xeno Gears' opening, which causes the ship to crash land on a planet. And the original plan of the supercomputer on the ship in that crash lands at the beginning of Xeno Gears, its plan was to return to Earth. And by the way, the name of the class of ship, the Eldridge, which is the name of the ship in Xeno Gears, it's a Philadelphia-class mothership. Everything comes full circle in Xeno. Everything. We're all in on Mr. Takahashi's wild ride here. So, anyways, just wanted to get that out there. So, what we're really seeing here is probably they're hinting at one of these massive ships, probably the big Philadelphia class, or maybe even more. Maybe it's just a scout ship, is returning to Earth. They're probably wondering what the fuck happened with the whole time, you know, the whole skip or the whole Klaus activating the conduit and causing a giant, massive hole in space-time. So they're probably coming back to be like, it probably reached them at some point, you know, however many 8,000s of years later, and they're like, what the fuck is going on here? So they're returning to Earth, maybe to see if it's habitable. Maybe it's a Horizon situation where whatever planet they inhabited, you know, after they left Earth and went to go colonize, maybe things have gone south there and they need to return to Earth. I think the point is that Xenoblade 4 is going to be a story about humans learning to live with each other from different races and cultures. It's called Xeno for a reason. And what's going to happen is my prediction here. Here's where we get into prediction time. Prediction time. Xenoblade 4, you will possibly play as either a landing party from the Philadelphia-class mothership, which might be a nice twist or a turnaround, or you're going to be playing as someone who's living on the now combined Earth. And I think what's going to happen, obviously, is that the colonization humans are going to return to Earth and see people with wings coming out of their heads. They're going to see people with cat ears. They're going to see people with jewels being embedded and popping out of their, you know, out of their chest or, like, you know, near their throat. And they're going to be like, what the fuck happened here? And they're probably not even going to take too kindly to it. I imagine either whether or not you're from the colony ship or you're from Earth, it's going to have this thing where they're going to come down and be like, okay, is Earth habitable? Is Earth okay to return to? And there's going to be, they probably try to take it by force, the colonists. They probably come back and they probably try to reclaim Earth by force. And the people on the new Earth are probably horribly outmatched technology-wise against the invaders, the colonists. And they're probably going to get swamped until they learned about, they might discover some ruins. And in those ruins, there might be sirens or mechs, gears, dolls, skells, whatever you want to call them. And they basically have to learn to use, they dig up these old machines, these old robots to fight back against the colonists. But then there's this weird thing where the colonists also land on Earth and they also dig up their own gears from the ground. And somehow they find the human colonists are able to command and pilot all these ancient ruins of these ancient fighting robots, not Mega Man. And then there's going to be basically this big civil war. What I'm basically saying here, and some people might have already picked up on what I'm talking about, and that is Xenoblade 4 is very much going to be a version of Turn A Gundam. Why Turn A Gundam? Because Takahashi is a massive fucking weeb. And not only is Takahashi a big fucking weeb, he's a big fucking weeb for Gundam. He has a Gundam model kit collection. He has talked about this in interviews. And that's exactly where this motherfucker is going with Xenoblade 4. I can almost guarantee it. So this is going to be a title that talks about basically humanity learning to live with and get along with this other people who are also human but are so disconnected and from such a different time period and have been separated for so long and so many vastness of time and space, and then it's going to seem like they can't get along. They're just going to be constantly destined to be at war with each other, and that's going to be the plot of the game, is learning to basically everyone coming together to overcome their differences, because it's a Xeno game. I don't know if it'll end like Turn 8 Gundam with technology being reset, though that would be an interesting way to go. But I imagine this is where we're going. So, what does that mean for the actual gameplay? I do think there's a distinct possibility that Xenoblade 4 will feature the return of mech combat, mech control. And I think there's going to be things where you can possibly fly from surface into space, kind of like No Man's Sky, maybe Starfield, we'll see, shit like that. Because here's the thing, it's definitely not going to be on the Switch. This is going to be on the Switch successor. It's going to be on a new engine. It's going to be on a new system. Monolith Soft's probably going to want to flex a little bit of their muscle, or the new system's muscle, and show off, because I mean, that's what they did all the lifespan on the Switch, was basically put everyone else to shame who worked on the system. So my imagining is that there will probably still be some central thing in the sky, which could be a giant Philadelphia-class mothership. It could be a space station or something, or it could be, if they really wanted to go real deep into Turn A, the colonists could maybe set up a giant space station on the moon, and the moon itself becomes the weird object in the distance that you are heading towards. Because if you think about all the Xenoblade games, they have the Mechonis in the distance, always at Xenoblade 1. That's kind of the thing. The World Tree in Xenoblade 2. The Sword and Orion Mountains in Xenoblade 3. So they always have like this sort of like big thing in the background hanging out in the sky that you're kind of like moving towards. And it probably could just be our own moon, our own lunar base. Or it could be, possibly could be Jupiter or Europa. Why do I say that? Well, because at the end of Xenoblade 1, when you are walking across the galaxy towards the final boss fight, you end at Jupiter. And then in Xenoblade Future Redeemed, before they show the Earth splitting apart and recombining, they show very distinctly the camera right by Jupiter. Now, why Jupiter? Because it's a reference to 2001 and 2010, the Arthur Clarke novels and movies. And in those movies, in case you didn't know, which, it's fair if you didn't, they're old now, in those films, the monolith is the object that causes and forces humanity's evolution. And in the movie 2001, they basically get a signal coming from Europa or near Jupiter, so they fly out to find the monolith, and the monolith ends up evolving the surviving astronaut into some new form of life. 2010 kind of goes in further in that about like Europa and all that. So yeah, like the monolith, the entity of which their company is named after, is directly tied to Jupiter and Europa. So there may be even something where you are flying around our solar system. It could even be, and if we want to get even wilder, you could possibly be going from planet to planet. Mercury, Venus, Mars, the Moon, Earth, and then not really Jupiter's a gas giant, but like maybe Europa or something like that. It would be a cute little tie-in. And again, and also to reiterate the Icarus thing, it could be, and this is why I think you might be playing as a colonist, might be the main character you start as, because one, that's the main character in Turn 8 Gundam, and I'm not letting this go, and two, in Planet of the Apes, the whole point of that movie is that Charlton Heston is in the spaceship, the Icarus, crash lands on a planet, doesn't know where he is, thinks he's on some alien, world. Turns out it's Earth. It's the point of origin. Their origin again. So, wrapping it all up, Xenoblade 4, in my mind, is going to be a game that takes place between Earth and some other object in the sky, whether it be a space station or the moon, or possibly even planet to planet. The planets themselves can become the Titans, or maybe you just go to the Moon Titan. So these are all things that I think mechs are coming back. I still think it's going to have the same basic form and structure of a Xenoblade game. I expect the battle system will be tweaked a lot, and I think, we're probably still going to possibly be getting some sort of quasi turn-based slash real-time, like in between combat. I don't know. They might go full-bore real-time combat. That might be the big change Takahashi's really referring to. Is that it might just be like a fully real-time combat game. I could also see that happening because when they get to the Switch successor, they might be at the feeling, hey, we don't have to, do this sort of quasi turn-based thing where we have the juice under the hood now to do like a real good real-time combat system. They have hired for that, although I think that's for another project. So that's a distinct possibility in my mind. So yeah, these are all things that I think are probably happening with Xenoblade 4. I'm just going to call it Xenoblade 4 from now on. And I think here's the other thing. I think we're actually going to see this game sooner rather than later because Monolith Soft saw the value really hard by launching Xenoblade 2 within the first year of the Switch. And it became their best-selling game of all time. And I think that whenever the Switch successor is revealed, this won't be a launch title because they've been too busy. But I do think they will do everything in their power to have a new game, whether it's this game or a definitive edition of 2 or a brand new IP. I think we're going to see their next game within the first year of the new Nintendo system regardless. And if it is Xenoblade 4, I think that, again, we might be seeing this we might actually have a decent chance of seeing the announcement of this game in a year. I think that's entirely possible. Don't be too shocked if you do. But yeah, this is what I think is happening. It's not Cosmos, it's not X. It is absolutely the colonization ships, one of them at least, returning to Earth. And we are basically setting up for a showdown with the original humans who left our galaxy to, well, I guess not our galaxy, I should say our solar system, because the nebula is within the Milky Way galaxy. We are going to set up a showdown between the human colonists and the human, or I guess you could call them humans, I guess that's what they are, that are descendants of the people from Xenoblade 3, well, 1, 2, and 3. And it's going to set up a showdown that's going to mimic both Xeno Gears and Turn A Gundam. And I do think mechs are coming back. And I think you're going to pilot them. And I think you're going to go in and out of the surface of a planet because Monolith Soft's going to want to flex their engine muscle. And yeah, that's what I think is actually happening here. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you want to debate this with me. And let me know if, possibly anything else that comes up. So again, just let me know what you think. And I will see you on the channel later, dudes.